You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on. Hello and welcome to Mamamia Out Loud. It's what women are actually talking about on Friday, the 29th of April. I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Gemma Bath, host of True Crime Conversations, and today I'm filling in for the one Mia Friedman.
And I'm Vernem, host of our daily entertainment podcast, The Spill. I'm stepping in for Jessie today.
Thank you both for filling in while Amir and Jessie are away. We'll all be back on Monday, but today, usually on Fridays, we try and bring you a bit of a lighter show, and that is what we're doing today. There is very sad and heavy news from all around the country, and there has been all week. But we decided we wanted our Friday show to be a little bit of distraction, a little bit of relief. So today, we're going a bit silly. On today's show, the birthday card relationship test and why women have a breakup superpower. The most watched show on Netflix right now, a newsletter and a controversial book. Those are our weekend recommendations. And the very specific kind of socks you're meant to be wearing at the moment. Long distance celebrations and a great big period headache. They are our bests and worsts of the week. But first, Gemma Bath.
In case you missed it, Meghan Markle. She has released a jam.
I'm so
A jam
excited.
as in like a fun song?
As in a spread.
Oh,
as in a breakfast spread. It's just the most random news to wake up to. The Duchess of Sussex has announced that the first luxury product for her brand American Riviera Orchard is a handmade strawberry jam that only 50 people so far have exclusively received. And obviously this is an audio medium, so let me describe said jam. Very rustic, very country, a little bit of like a muslin cloth with a little tie, a beautiful little label. And you know how when something's super exclusive, it'll say like 1 of 50, 17.
Yeah.
It's that.
Oh, so you get a number.
You get a number.
So, Gem, who are the lucky 50 people to get the first ever jars of Meghan Jam?
We do know two. Meghan Jam, what a sentence. So Mindy Kaling is one of said recipients.
Oh.
We also know a fashion designer by the name of Tracy Robbins has received one. So it seems like friends of Meghan, you know, with big followings that are going to promote said jam across their socials. I'm thinking maybe an Oprah. Probably
Oprah
she's
would
in there.
have to get one.
Maybe Tay-Tay, she's everywhere. We're going to be talking about her later. No, not Tay-Tay.
I reckon Beyonce has definitely got one because she was in that documentary of theirs where she was like, Beyonce just texted me.
Yes, she wants to.
She's got to be in there. She's got to get a jam, Beyonce.
So this would be tricky, right? So I went immediately to American Riviera Orchard, or as Out Louders know, we like to call it American Riviera Orchard Now, which is the new Instagram account for this very high-end lifestyle brand that Meghan has started. And they haven't posted yet. So this is a soft launch, right? They've posted out the jams to the famous people, and they are hoping against hope that those famous people are posting to get the jam going, as it were, get the jam flowing.
But Holly, I'm confused as to why jam in the first place. It just feels like a random place to go.
And why strawberry?
Yeah.
Like strawberry's the most
Raspberry
basic
is
flavour.
where we start. Well, the reason, Gem, as all Meghan watchers know, is that Meg's lifestyle brand is going to be a bit goopy. So it's going to be recipe books. She says she's very into homemaking now. American Riviera Orchard Now from Montecito is going to be very organic, very rustic, very genuine, very down to earth, and very expensive. So what we don't know yet, but we are doubtless about to find out, is how much Meghan's jam costs. Can't wait. Bring it on. I want the jam.
So she's the new Gwyneth Paltrow is what you're telling me.
100%. The world is about to be completely obsessed with one particular breakup. In fact, they already are. As we're recording this show today, Taylor Swift has not yet dropped her new album, which is called The Tortured Poets Department, which I'm sorry is nearly as bad as American Riviera Orchard Now, but
It's a mouthful.
I'm going to swallow any snark because I know how much Out Louders love Swiftie, and I love Swiftie too. But anyway, her new album is called The Tortured Poets Department now, and that is all about breakups. Now, that's not new territory for Swift, but what we're already seeing before the album's released, it's going to be dropped in a couple of hours, I think, when we're recording this. Everybody's trying to work out exactly which breakup Taylor's going to be picking apart. Most think, of course, it's going to be her 6-year relationship with Joe Alwyn, which seemed to end very suddenly. But apparently early signs are that it's more about her 2-month relationship with lead singer Matt Healy. I'm already confused. I need all the Swifties to explain this to me. But anyway, breakups are very much in the zeitgeist right now. The top story on Mamamia all week has been a piece written by one Vernem that was all about when women knew that their relationship had ended. Tell me about that story.
Oh my God, this story went crazy. And I have to thank the Out Louders because most of the submissions to the story were from the Out Louders in the Out Louder Facebook group.
This is just like Swiftie sharing her pain. The Out Louders have shared their pain with you and you've spun it into content gold.
And I read every single one. So I can understand
so
why
good.
people are like sucking this in. It's just such good content.
So we did an article on site and it is 40 women, which is a huge number. I think the biggest we've ever done, just sharing the specific moment they knew their relationship was going to end. So of course, a lot of them were big moments. Like there was a cheating scandal. They just both had a conversation, them and their partner, and they realized they were never going to work out. But what I was noticing, most of them were kind of a specific moment where you would never really think that something could invoke such an emotion. One of them was when I took my 3 kids to a play group on Monday morning, then returned home at midday and my partner was still in bed.
Well, that is absolutely a done deal.
Done deal.
Oh, that makes my skin crawl.
There are lots of women listening to this who are like, that is my life and I have not pulled the pin, but totally justifiable.
What I found also really interesting is that a lot of them showed that I think women specifically know when their relationship is going to end before it actually happens, whether they're the one who's going to break it up or whether their partner breaks up with them. There was one that said, I felt it. The last time my partner turned over to hug me in bed, my body and mind instantly went, this is the last time. He then left me a week later.
So she knew that he was going to leave.
Yes. And as someone who has been in many relationships, who has dated quite regularly, I feel like I felt that so deeply. I think I have been able to tell every single time I was about to be broken up with.
I think for women, it's often a slow build and then a straw, you know, like the final straw that kind of makes you go, okay, I'm out. And that's the kind of thing I got from reading your article. It was like, it might sound like a small thing, and you always hear like in movies and pop culture, the guy being like, I got broken up with over not unloading the dishwasher. It's not about the dishwasher. It's about that build up.
100%. But when you say that you knew,
yes,
like when you say that you know even when they're going to break up with you, do you think that women have a spidey sense? Or do you think that we're like primed for rejection because of, you know, the world?
I definitely think I'm primed for rejection.
Give me some examples of times when you've gone, oh, this is coming.
There was a time where I think I was in a relationship for 8 months and it was fine. We were getting on and he asked me to go for dinner. He's like, can't wait to see you. Should we go here for dinner? And sent me a name of restaurant. And I don't know what happened in my mind, but I just texted him back and was like, I know you're going to break up with me at this dinner. I'd rather you do it right now.
Oh.
And what did he reply?
He called me. Yeah, he basically told me I was right. He was like, I'm so sorry if I was putting out anything that made you feel like this. And I was like, I actually can't think of anything that you did that made me feel like this.
Text something specific that made you go ding, ding, ding?
No, I feel like it's a kind of a feeling of energy and their vibe. I think especially when you're with a partner for so long. And someone who does this, who's mentioned this really well, is Dolly Alderton in her last book, Good Material. She talks about this phenomenon called the flip. And she says how, first I want to say it's from a male perspective, but she was talking about how relationships are always uneven, where someone will always like the other person a bit more. And where the relationship goes wrong is when those roles flip, where the other person starts liking the other person a bit more and the relationship can't withstand that. So she says healthy relationships flip multiple times throughout the relationship.
Which I think is definitely true. I think when you're in a long relationship like I am, ideally that flip happens quite regularly and you can live through it.
Yeah.
But I think if your whole relationship has been based on one power dynamic and then that turns.
Yeah. And I think
that's the
where
flip
it
that's
went
hard
wrong.
to survive. I want to know, back to this particular dinner and the phone call situation.
Yes.
So he calls you. He says, I'm sorry if I gave you that vibe. But then did he confirm that your vibe was correct?
Confirmed my vibe was correct.
So he did want to break up with you and he was inviting you to dinner to break up with you and you just knew.
And I was like, what are you going to do? Break up with me like after the entrees and then we have to wait for dessert?
That has happened to me.
Has happened to you.
I got broken up with years ago now at the bank in Newtown. You know the bank in Newtown?
Yeah. It's a great pub.
Yep, Out Louders. There's a pub in Sydney called The Bank. And I don't know if there still is, but downstairs there used to be a Thai restaurant. Is there still?
I don't think so.
Anyway, there used to be a Thai restaurant downstairs in The Bank. And this guy that I'd been seeing for a while, several months, and we'd had quite an intense time, he invited me for dinner at The Bank. I was like, yes, yes, yes. Like I was really into him. And I go down there and I could just tell from the way he was sitting at the table. There's just something about him just straight away. I knew. And I was like, oh. And I sat down and the money bags came. And then I'm just halfway through my first money bag and he's like, so. And I was like, oh no. But I was like, I really like these money bags. I really like
Do
this
not
restaurant.
ruin this restaurant for me.
If I was a different kind of person, maybe someone with more self-respect or confidence, I would like throw down the money bag and get up and march out of the restaurant and be like, I am not sharing dinner with you. But I didn't. I sat there through the entire awkward dinner like, okay. It was the worst dinner of my life. And so you were right to say, I'm not going to that dinner. But I wish I'd had your insight because I didn't at the time.
But I was also just flying by the seat of my pants. Like he could have well and truly been like, you are crazy. Like the fact
I'm
that
going to
you
break up with you
messaged me.
because you said that.
And you know what I think about when I think about that, the most awkward dinner of my life now, is I can't remember who paid for it, but I'm almost certain that we split the bill.
No!
Because we always did.
Holly!
I'm pretty certain that a portion of my hard-earned funds went to those unswallowable money bags.
Buy your own breakup.
Gemma, have you ever had one of those like lightning moments when you're like, this relationship's finished?
I've had one major breakup in my life. I've had lots of little, more like situationships.
Micro
and-
breakups.
Yeah. And I've had two big relationships. The one I'm in now, I've been with my husband for 8 years, and then one I had in my early to mid-20s. And towards the end of our relationship, we were a bit off and on. And then he kept doing things that in hindsight I should have left. They were just kind of like, we weren't suited anymore, but none of us could quite pull the pin. And I think it was my lack of confidence. I, was that old trope of I'm not going to meet anyone. I was 25, like ridiculous. I'm not going to meet anyone. No one's ever going to love me again, blah, blah, blah. And it was actually a comment from my dad that was my light bulb moment, because I'd kind of been in my head doing all of those things that you do, like Googling. This is always a sign in my books. Should I break up with my boyfriend?
Yeah.
Oh my God, if you're Googling, should I break up
Googling.
with my boyfriend? The answer is yes.
Exactly.
If you type that into Google, just the 3 letters yes should just come really
out of there,
flashing
girl.
on the
I was
screen.
in deep in Reddit threads. I was that kind of thing. And then I went for a walk with my dad, and this guy had broken up with me in the past, and then we got back together and all of this. And I just said to my dad, and my parents have always had that mantra of they don't like to tell my sister and I what to do. They like to stand back and let us live our lives. And in that moment, I was so annoyed by that. I was like, just tell me what to do. Like, I want your opinion. And I went for a walk with my dad, just him and I. We went down to the beach, and I turned to him and I said, I just really want your opinion. Like, what do you think I should do? Should I stay with him? And my dad turned to me and he said, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's your relationship, but it's going to take a lot for me to trust him again. And honestly, in that moment, I was like, I'm out. Because it was almost like he had reflected back to me what I already knew.
Yeah.
And I just needed someone to go,
It's like he was that voice in your head. Like that's
he
what
was. And then, we broke up a few weeks later. I went home to where we'd been living together and I broke up with him. It's almost like I just needed that little bit of confidence to do it. And I think that was something to do with it being my first relationship, my early 20s, and I just needed that little push. But it was almost like that last final straw. And I've always remembered it because that was so many years ago now. But I've always remembered my dad, because it was one of the only times he's dipped into my relationships or choices in life and actually given, it wasn't even that strong of an opinion. It wasn't like, you should break up with him.
Yeah, but you obviously really value your dad's judgment. And it sounds to me like your dad is someone in your life who you respect their assessment of people's characters. And once you knew that he was kind of done in your dad's eyes, he was never really going to come back from that.
Yeah.
Right? They say that whoever's doing the breaking up in a relationship, most of the time that person has been thinking about it for a while, right? So if you are emotionally intelligent, you can pick up that they're thinking about that. And I think that it's one of those things that if you're the one who's doing the thinking about the breakup, and I wrote a book about this, I Give My Marriage a Year, where the woman is like trying to decide whether to break up, you sometimes go, well, this is a really big deal, so I'm going to try, but I'm going to look for a sign. And that's what this article was like, lots of people's kind of signs, right?
Yeah. And I think the biggest sign for me, especially reading these responses, is that it is that kind of change in dynamic. What you said is right whole, but I also believe that people can sometimes guess when someone is going to break up with them before that person even knows they're going to break up with them.
Back to that vibe thing.
It's back to that vibe thing. I remember there was one time where I was dating a guy and it was coming up to our 5th or 6th date. And he was like, can't wait to see you soon. And I went into my diary that night. I was probably in my early 20s. And I wrote down exactly how we were going to break up. And I wrote down, I'm going to go out with Jack tonight. Can't wait to see him. I just know that this will be like one of our last dates because he'll probably break up with me in like a few weeks.
Oh.
And he did.
So you're always expecting to be broken up with?
Yeah. Well, no, I think when I break up with someone, obviously I'm not thinking about it on such a micro level because I'm not analyzing their every movement and their every thought because I know I'm the one who's going to be ending it. But when I feel it the other way around, that's when I become so, I guess the word is insecure of myself and I just completely analyze every little situation. So it's true. Like there have been times where I've done that and in the process of doing that, I'm like, maybe the reason why I knew they were going to break up with me was because I was feeling it so deeply that the way I acted did make them pull the plug, if that makes sense.
Definitely. One of the things I loved in this, right, is this woman who wrote to you her reason. And she said, when I could not write a single thing on their birthday card that I actually meant, the words were fake and forced. That is so good because whenever I'm writing a card to anybody, you know how like you're often busy and you're just writing a card and you're not thinking about it too much. I always try to like stop and really think about what I want to say to that person, whether it's a friend's birthday, whether it's someone leaving work, or in this case, like the birthday card for the person who's supposed to love most in the world, whatever. It's like, what do I really want to say? And if your mind is blank, or if all you want to write down is be better, fuckwit, or something, like, then it's definitely over. I think that that's such a good, that's so like kind of piercing.
Maybe
if you can't think of anything good to say.
Maybe that's a good test. You know, if you're like me in my mid-20s and you're wondering whether you should break up, try and write them a letter in your head. What would you say to them on their birthday card? Maybe it's a good way to kind of like sort through your own thoughts.
Yeah, just make sure they don't
Why
find
do you
it.
think we're so obsessed with breakups, right? Why do you think that Taylor Swift's album, like all I'm seeing all over the internet are people posting those memes of people working out difficult maths equations and being like Swifties going through the Easter egg, blah, blah. I think one of the hardest questions to answer when you've just been broken up with, which are not even when you've been, or if you've done the breaking up, is why did you break up? Because it's very rarely one thing. Why are we so obsessed with picking apart other people's breakups?
I personally think when it comes to my breakups, I'm obsessed because similar to, Jem, what you said, like going down the Reddit holes and stuff, I'm obsessed with the idea that I know the answer, but I never want to believe it. And every single breakup, I always do that. I always like try to find an answer that doesn't put the ownership on myself.
Yeah.
And I do it with every breakup and I know all the answers because I keep reading the same threads over and over again. And I think so many people can relate to that. So many people want their breakup to be the exception of the rule. They want it to be something that no one else can explain. They don't want to be hearing that, oh, time will heal everything. Oh, it just wasn't meant to be. Because I like, no, but like, what if I'm the one that's different? And I think that's what people obsess over.
Are you allowed to be sad about the breakup and write lots of sad songs about it and stuff if you were the one that did the breaking up?
I think breaking up with someone is often just as hard.
Yeah.
And I think, You know, when I broke up with my then boyfriend, I had mourned that relationship by the time I did the breaking up, but I mourned it hard. Like, I was really sad. I was like, I have created in my head a vision of my life. He's been in it for several years. I wanted this to be our forever, but it's not. I've realised that. It's time to break up. And I think, obviously, when you're getting broken up with, there's that rejection element that makes it really hard. But breaking up with people is just as tricky, and it comes with just as complex an emotion. And I think, going back to what you say, Holly, why are we so obsessed with breakups? It's because I think it's such a universal and human experience. Most people have been through a breakup or, you know, at least a separation of some kinds, and it hurts. It's one of those experiences that really hurts, whether you're the breakie, the breakupper, whatever you are. And I just think we're still struggling to get our heads around it as a society, because it's one of those things that I just think sometimes breakups are just really sad.
Out loud, as if you haven't already told Vernem the moment that you knew your relationship was over, please do come in the Out Louders group and share it, because it might just help somebody else. Mamamia Out
Loud! So the weekend is almost upon us. It's time for us to set you up for your weekend with all of our weekly recommendations. Kick us off, Holly. What have you got?
All right, I've got a book. Now, I'm known for sometimes controversial recommendations. Not everybody agrees with me. Jessie likes to give me shit about it. This book is a very talked about book at the moment, and not everybody loves it, but I bloody did, right? It's called The Work by Bree Lee. Have either of you two read it?
No.
I'm halfway through. I love Bree.
Yeah, I love Bree too, right? So Bree Lee, if you don't know, she's something of a wunderkind of Australian literature. She had a massive smash with her first book, which is nonfiction. It's called Eggshell Skull, and it was pretty much about her experience, although it ended up being broader than that, of sort of sexual harassment and assault in the legal world. And she was a young lawyer. And then since then, she has gone on to write 2 more books, really interesting, on beauty and who gets to be smart. But this is her first fiction book, her first novel. And it's really ambitious. It's set in the art world, right, which is a world I don't know much about. And if that's turning you off, then you don't need to know much about it. Don't worry about that. It's a love story between a young woman who runs a gallery in New York called Lally and a young Australian man called Patrick, who comes from this working class background but now works in this really fancy art auction firm in Sydney. And they start a relationship when Patrick goes over to New York for work. And so it kind of is about that. But all the way through it are all these sort of quite big themes about class and about sex. There's a lot of sex in it.
It's very sexy. Oh, my God.
Our conversation about smut on Wednesday, it's not fairy tale-y sex. It's pretty, what's the word?
Just
like
original?
It's pretty raw.
Just IRL.
Yeah, it's pretty IRL. It's pretty raw. And in fact, one of the things that I liked about it, because the book's written from 2 perspectives, so she writes through Patrick's perspective a lot. And his way he talks about sex is not some kind of like idealized view of how men think about sex. It's pretty raw. Anyway, I really like this book. And my favorite part of it is in the middle. This is no spoilers. In the middle of the book, Lally makes a choice because she's pretty mercenary in her art choices. She's all about wanting to be bigger, better. It's about female ambition. She wants to make more money, and she gives a deal at her gallery to this really controversial artist who already has several problematic scandals under his belt. She decides that she's going to do it anyway. The way that unfolds, the scenes in which that unfolds, this show where everything goes wrong, and then the following social media pile-on, her cancellation, all this stuff, it is so agonizing to read. It's one of those books where I was literally going, oh no, like almost wanting to put it down. And so I really enjoyed it. I think it's massively ambitious, very smart. It's called The Work. It's by Bree Lee, and it's in all good bookshops now.
Gem, your turn.
My recommendation is a TV show, which I'm almost embarrassed to admit I have binged in the last 24 hours. Which I haven't done for a while. I mean, I have a small child, I have a job, plenty of things I should have been doing last night. But instead, I binged all 8 episodes of a new TV show called Baby Reindeer.
You say this woman's stalking you?
Yeah, like 6 months maybe.
Why'd it take you so long to report it?
I think she needs help. She comes to my work, my house. She sends me emails like all the time.
Are any threatening towards you?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's particularly threatening.
There's a reason you're keeping her around, and maybe it's what she gives you.
Got really manly hands, haven't you? Chiseled jawline. Should we run away together? So you're a comedian?
Sort of.
It's not going well.
So is that a question?
Somebody hurt you, didn't they? Who was it?
Martha, can you let go of my hand now, please? Martha, please let go.
Best
I don't think you're
TV
alone.
show.
I think it's the biggest show at
It's
the minute.
massive.
I thought it was literally about a reindeer. It's not.
I know when I mentioned it this morning, Holly went, huh? What?
Yeah.
Baby reindeer? Oh my gosh, you have to get around it. It is so, so good. I'll give you some comparisons to start with so you kind of know what genre we're in. People have compared it to Fleabag. I'm going to admit I didn't really like Fleabag, but I can see, I know, controversial.
Whoa.
Is it a drama or a documentary?
It's a drama.
I would say it's also a dark comedy.
It's a dark comedy. It's had comparisons to like You. Do you remember that? The psychological
right.
thriller kind of aspect. I do see the similarities there, but this is English. It's that English black humour kind of vibe. It is so good. To give you a top line of what it's about a comedian a bit of a failing comedian who's working in a pub in England, and a lonely woman comes in. Her name is Martha, and he offers her a cup of tea on the house free of charge. And then she becomes his stalker.
Right.
And she just stalks him for years. And it's like that fascinating relationship. I feel like stalking is really in the zeitgeist at the moment as something that we're learning more about. It's something that a lot of people have experienced. And it's something that it's hard to make police stations, police officers, the justice system understand, because often it's kind of lots of tiny little things, but there's no real crime to zone in on to kind of prosecute. So it looks at all of that. It's weird.
Yeah.
He's weird. The show is weird, but in the best possible way. It's quite dark.
Does it have anyone in it that we know?
Not really. No, I don't recognise anyone. The main character, obviously, is the main person you will know. His name is Richard Gadd. He's a comedian, and it's actually based on his life, his true story.
So it's his story.
It's his story, and he plays the main character.
I don't know how he does that.
It's amazing. And Baby Reindeer was the name of his one-man comedy show, and then they've turned it into this TV series. It's so good. There's 7 episodes. I think I watched 5 last night.
That's always my number one question. Are the episodes short or long?
30-ish minutes.
Great.
Decent,
That's short.
yeah.
We like
And
that.
it's quite fast moving. Episode 4, a warning, is very graphic. Sexual assault. It's a bit full on, a very bit of change of pace, but I still devoured every moment of it. Highly, highly recommend. But it is quite dark, so make sure you're in the right frame of mind for it.
Baby Reindeer on Netflix. What have you got for us, Em?
I have a little newsletter recommendation. If you know me, you know I love a newsie. I am recommending
Can I have one question
Yes.
for you about newsletters,
Of course.
right? I write a newsletter,
Yes.
so I'm a fan and I get newsletters, but my inbox is a bin fire.
Agreed.
How do you kind of
Cut through.
be happy about, cut through to the newsletters you want and not feel like, oh, every time you open your inbox?
I actually have a different email just for newsletters.
Oh,
game changer.
Hack, top tip.
I've got a little Yahoo.
How many newsletters do you subscribe to?
A lot. Probably like I want to say at least 50 to 60.
Stop.
That is such a good idea, Em, because that's like your reading list.
Yeah, well, I do want to say that I used to manage our newsletters in Mamamia, so I had to do
Yeah,
it
so
for
you
a
know.
job. And now I do it just as someone who loves newsletters, who loves content. I like content delivered straight to me.
That's a really good idea.
That could have been my recommendation, a hack on your inbox. I'll do that next time. So I'm recommending a Substack. It's called Culture Vulture. And the most recent post they did was titled, What It's Like to Be on the Other Side of a Parasocial Relationship. So a parasocial relationship, if you don't know, is kind of a one-sided relationship where you know everything about that certain person and that person doesn't even know you exist. So it's usually the relationships we form with celebrities. Like we get excited when they get married, when they have children, we mourn their deaths, and they have no idea who we are.
Or like social media.
So like influencers, anyone who has like a big following, I guess. This newsletter talks about something called a saraposial relationship, which is the inverse. So saraposial relationship is a term coined by Hank Green, and he says basically that because of social media, parasocial relationships don't really exist anymore because celebrities do have a sort of idea of who's following them and who's engaging with them in a way that they never used to. And I always think about when I was younger in my magazine days, I used to love reading everything about Jesse McCartney. Like I would literally grab and beg my mum to buy anything that had his name in it just so I knew who he was as a person.
Jesse, what a throwback. I wonder what he's doing now.
Well, like he's still famous. And now, like he's on my TikTok feed. He'll probably see my comments on his TikTok feed. He'll probably see my tweets about him, which I sometimes still
You're
do.
closer to him than you ever were.
Yeah.
And he might reply.
Exactly.
I'm confused. Sarah Poshel, explain it to me again.
So Sarah Poshel relationships is like the inverse of parasocial. So it's the relationships that celebrities or people with big followings do have with their fan base. They might not have it with individuals, like Jesse McCartney probably doesn't know what I'm eating for breakfast, but he does know how I feel about his music and like what he puts out there. And I think someone who is a great example of this is our bestie Taylor Swift, because everything she does is for her fan base. Like every decision she makes, she knows exactly the way her fans feel about her music. She knows exactly the way they feel about the Easter eggs she's leaving about her albums, how they're going to perceive them. And I just think it's such an interesting way because I feel like parasocial relationships still seems like such a new thing to us, but I feel like it's already dying. As Holly mentioned at the top of the show, we want to acknowledge that our collective worst of the week is, of course, the violence that has been happening in our country over the weekend and last week. But keeping best and worst to, I think it's like very personal, our best and worst this week. Some of them are a bit silly, some of them are a bit serious. I have a few serious ones. Holly, do you want to start us off?
Yes. So our rules on best and worst, my wonderful guest hosts, is that you have to start with worst. Otherwise Mia gets upset because we always have to leave people on a positive note.
On a high. Gotcha.
So my best and worst are related in that Out Louders will probably know that I was away last week because I have been back in Britain visiting my family. I went just for 8 days. It was my dad's 80th birthday. And my dad hasn't been very well lately. So it became apparent to me that it was really important to make the journey, even though it was for only a short time, to be at this event. So they're related. My worst is something that I think will resonate with a lot of Out Louders who are a similar age to me. There is a very particular pain and weight when your parents begin to get old, basically. There's a sort of flip that happens where suddenly you are looking at life through a very different lens, where if you're lucky enough to have had a loving family, you've had the support of your parents for your life, and then it suddenly becomes very clear that they need your support. And the worst in a way for me has been, obviously I'm very used to saying goodbye to my family, to living on the other side of the world to my family. I've been doing it now for nearly 30 years. But it's getting harder and harder in a way because you're realizing what maybe needs to be done that you're not there to do, the support that you need to offer that you can't, plans you're going to have to make for what's happening with your family. It was a really, really bittersweet trip and it was a very hard goodbye. And I know that there are a lot of people in my world at the moment, when we get together, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about our parents getting older and what we're doing and what we're not doing and how we can be the best support to them. And it's just hard. And my heart goes out to all of you because that's undoubtedly my worst. But my best was my dad's 80th birthday party. Woo! Because I know, although he's not that great at the moment, he turned it on for that night. He had said for ages that he did not want to celebrate his 80th birthday because he's like, what's good about being 80? That kind of thing. And then suddenly this year, possibly influenced by health, he was like, no, you know what? I'm going to do it. And he invited all his old friends who are still around from all corners of his life and family who could make it. And we had a really special evening. Obviously, I was there and I got to see a lot of people who I've known my entire life but haven't seen for decades. And my brother and my nephew and niece. And it was just such a really life-affirming, important, special moment, and I bloody loved it. And we made a big slideshow of all Dad's photos and things, which made a really good conversation piece. Those things are really good for parties because my dad was a bit cringe about it, to be honest, but everybody else had something to focus on, talk about, laugh about, point at. It was really fun. And I was like, thank God I came. Thank God Dad's well enough to do this. You know, we should be celebrating life and the people that we love at every occasion that we can. We don't know what's going to happen. And so my best by a million times was last Saturday night at a party in Manchester. That's my best and worst. Over to you.
Oh, my heart.
I know. I often think that as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate that celebrations are kind of like what makes life amazing, you know, like stopping to celebrate the moments.
And we can get really cynical about it. Like we've often done whinging on this show about weddings and the cost and the this and the that. And the thing is that it is really important to get together and celebrate things if you can.
Yeah.
You know, it really is.
Em, what's your worst?
My best and worst are also slightly related in the medical sense. So my worst of the week is that, I'm not sure if any other louder has the same issue that I have, but I suffer from menstrual migraines.
Oh, man. Every time?
Every time. I used to get chronic migraines when I was younger. I was on the pill and then I had to get off the pill. So I've been off the pill, but I still get migraines once a month. If I'm able to catch them a bit early, like if I'm able to take painkillers a bit earlier, then they are usually just a dull headache. But they're like, sometimes they like are full-blown migraines. I got my migraine last week when I was filling in for Out Loud.
Oh, darling.
What, in the middle of a record?
It was straight after the record, and I thought it was because I was so stressed because I'm like, this is Mamamia's biggest show. It's like one of the biggest shows in the entire country. And I was like, I'm probably just stressed. And I went to the bathroom and I was like, oh no, I've got my period. And my second day of migraine is always way worse, and I had to fill in for the second day as well. So I messaged Stacey. The whole editorial team know this about me, by the way. I had to message my manager, Stacey, and I was like, I just got my period. And so everyone knew. They were like, oh God, she's got a period. Like, she's going to get a migraine.
We're a very open team
We're
here
very
at Mamamia.
open here at Mamamia. Luckily, it wasn't too bad. I was able to come in. I feel like
Is there anything you can do with your menstrual migraines, knowing that this happens every month? Like, have you got a hack that works, or is there anything that makes it bearable?
I'm on some pretty intense medication, but it's literally ride the wave. Like sometimes they just completely take over. Sometimes I'm able to catch it where like I get a bit of an aura where like my vision goes a bit weird. And then I'm like, oh, I should probably, and if I'm like tracking my period as well, I'm like, okay, it's definitely going to be a migraine. So I'll just have to deal with it. But I basically have to take at least a day off work, sick leave every month. I know. It's horrible.
That's horrible.
It sucks.
It sucks. I have written a piece on site, so if anyone is interested in menstrual migraines, we will link it in the show notes because I interviewed a doctor and she was amazing about explaining it. My best of the week is also medical. I also have this other condition I suffer with. It's called vaginismus. Out loud as if you have any little ears, I'm about to talk about my vagina. Vaginismus is a condition that makes any form of vaginal penetration extremely painful. Gem, I think you know about this better than I do. You can probably explain it better than I can.
I also have had vaginismus in the past. It's a very common condition that women suffer from, but it is still a relatively unknown condition. A lot of women don't realise. And when Em says any kind of penetrative, obviously that can mean sex. It can also mean things like tampons. It can mean, in my instance, it was sparked by medical examinations.
Yeah.
So that's when mine would spark. I know Em's was more sexual related.
Yeah, mine was sexual related, also related to PCOS. And yeah, so with my vaginismus, I have to see a physio, and it's physically trying to make your vagina hole
It's your
bigger.
pelvic floor. So what happens is...
I love how Gem has to take over.
Em's like, no, that's not what it is.
It's your pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor is a muscle that sits obviously inside, and it's often we think it's quite a small muscle. Doctors are probably screaming at me. But what you're basically doing is you're inserting these, they're called dilators, and you're stretching the pelvic floor and training it. Because as people that have...
like some people do that when they're going to have a baby.
I did it when I was about to give birth as well, because my vaginismus they realised that my pelvic floor had tightened. So you know how they often say that, women need to worry about wetting their pants and stuff? I was the opposite.
Yeah.
I needed to loosen my pelvic floor because it was so tight that they were worried that my baby wouldn't be able to come out. So it's about, you literally put a dilator, and I'm using my fingers, my hands here, to push down the pelvic floor and kind of help to loosen it and train it and and put it back to its kind of resting state is what you're
And
doing.
was this your best, Em, because you had a breakthrough with your physio at this?
I had a bit of a breakthrough.
That's probably not the right word for this.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
My vaginism might come back after that word. I was able to insert a tampon for the first time in my entire life.
Oh, wow.
Pain-free. Pain-free.
You know, whenever we talk about this or write about this on Mamamia, we always get so many women saying, me too, me too, me too. And so it's amazingly common. And it's the same with any menstrual related conditions. Women always go, yes, because we don't talk about it. We're not taught about it at school. And then we're like, but hold on, this is ruining my life. So thank you, Em. You're doing a public service.
There's so little information out there. The article that Gemma did, she did a massive features piece for Mamamia, and it's one of the first articles that appears on search because there's so little information out there. But I just want to say, if you do struggle with things like penetrative sex or like inserting tampons, a lot of people forget about vaginismus. So really look into it and see if that's something that you can bring up with your doctor, because it is treatable. And if people forget that, it is 100% treatable. And I really encourage, like, it's taken me years to work through it, but I am working through it, which I think is like, I couldn't believe that.
Good on you, Em.
Yeah.
Thank you for talking about it too.
Gem, I feel like you have a fun one.
Bring us home.
Mine is a little bit more trivial. I want to talk to you about socks.
Oh, mate.
They are my worst of the week.
I just looked under the table.
Me too.
I am wearing the wrong socks, I have been told by the young people in my office, in our office. So we have a colleague here called Annalise, or Chris Jenner, as she is known. She is the mum of the team. And she approached the young'uns of our office and asked them about her socks and whether she was wearing appropriate sockwear for her ankle-length boots. And they obviously were telling her, you know, you still have to wear a long sock. It doesn't have to go. All of this is alien to me.
We talked about this on the show recently, but isn't this because, Gem, recently we've discovered, certainly those of us who are not Gen Z, that what we thought whether we were doing the right thing by like not showing our socks in trainers and boots was the wrong thing, and we should be showing our socks in trainers and boots.
We're supposed to be wearing long-ish.
Yes.
Long-ish, not like up to your knee. Like, am I getting this wrong, Em?
No, you're getting it right. What I think the issue is here is that the socks you're meant to be wearing, you can wear ankle socks, but it has to be the right length of ankle socks.
Oh my gosh.
God, you people.
So yesterday I was wearing a pair of jeans, a pair of Converse and ankle socks.
Oh no, Jem. That's
What?
And
That's what we were meant to do.
I got shamed by the young people in the office, and it was TikToked.
I'm just not an ankle sock girl, and that's because you're at Gen Z.
When is an ankle
But
sock?
I'm trying not to.
An ankle sock is athletic wear.
Yes, so that's allowed.
Is it? Yeah.
I'm wearing an ankle sock.
Oh, Jem, letting the team down, show us.
I got really early.
Socket.
No, that's worse than ankle sock. No, quick, tell me, with these jeans, what would you wear?
A sock.
That TikTok now has 500,000 views, and there is a hashtag in the comments because people thought my name was Jen, and the hashtag is #poor Jen.
Jen, that's the best worst we've ever had.
You should get those like cute ones with like the strawberries on. I have those ones.
I am not wearing strawberry socks.
Jem is a serious news journalist, Em. For God's sake.
Anyway, that's my worst. I've gone viral because of my ankle socks. My best of the week is I have a 15-month-old son. We recently put him into daycare because I'm obviously back here in the office. He has been going for about 2 months-ish. Anyone who has started daycare knows that you're basically at home half the time the first few months because they get sick.
Yeah.
I have been the sickest I've ever been. However, my best is that this week, for the first time ever, he didn't scream when we dropped him off at daycare. He has screamed, and I make my husband do the drop off because I refuse. And I also start really early in the office here, so I've managed to get out of that. My husband drops him off. He has screamed every single day.
Oh,
I pick him up. He often screams when I pick him up. It's almost like a punishment. Like he sees me across the room and he's like, where have you been? And this week it's all been smiles. Dropped him off. He's happily gone off and played in the sandpit. I've picked him up and he's smiling at his educators. And I can't tell you how much I've needed this because the mum guilt I have been feeling for the last few months. I feel like every mum I've tried to talk to, I think I've spoken to you about it, Holly. Every mum that's gone through it, it's almost like you've all blacked it out. You're like,
it's true.
I don't really remember that period.
Yeah, we go, it's fine, it doesn't last long. And we're like, none of us remember how long it lasted.
And the reason you don't realise is because it was so hard in the moment.
Yeah.
It is so hard dealing with putting a kid into daycare for the first time when they've only ever been at home, dealing with a multitude of sicknesses, dealing with your kids screaming at you and being so unhappy. Nowadays, they send you photos back home of what your kid's doing. And it's not like my kid screams and then he's happy all day. I was getting these photos of this like mopey, sad,
Jen,
like not crying,
heartbreak.
but just like a sad little face, like staring at me.
We did an episode about this a while ago, that there are some people who are like, kids hate daycare, they should never be in daycare. It's like,
Yeah, but
I think most don't, but yes.
the reason it's my best is because like he is now settled in. It's all the photos I'm getting are him smiling, enjoying himself, playing with new things. I have just needed this. So I'm so thrilled that we're finally here.
That's so cute. I also think it's the relationship with the mum and child. Like I don't know if this is going to make you feel better, but it doesn't end. Because I, as a 27-year-old woman, I think it was a few months ago, I usually go to my parents' house every weekend. And there was this one Sunday night where I got in my car to drive back home and I like wasn't moving in my car and I rolled down the window. My mom's like, is anything okay? And I was just like crying and I was like, I don't want to go to work. I want to stay here. And she was like, okay, come back in.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, sweetie. You're like the little daycare
So I'm
brat
like,
for 27.
you're in for 27 years, Gem.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. At least he's enjoying it for the moment.
He's doing better than I am, I can tell you that right now.
Outlouders, there is less than 2 weeks to go before our first live show starts in Brisbane. Right? Oh my God, so excited. So much to do. We are going to put a link in the show notes for the last few tickets available. Come and see us. It's Mamamia Out Loud Live, presented by Nivea Cellular. We're in Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney in May. Get around it. It's going to be amazing. I can't even talk to you about the things I've had to do in the last few weeks, the costumes I've had to wear. It's very entertaining. Please come see us. Make it all worthwhile.
Gem, have you ever considered deleting social media?
Yes, but not for long because I'm too addicted.
Aren't we all? We all. On yesterday's episode, Mia, Jessie and I unpack our relationship with social media, whether we're all just nursing one giant oversharing hangover or whether we just need to detox and never come back again. Here is a little sneak peek.
Would you ever delete Instagram?
No. I would probably go be that kind of person who will constantly like disable and read but like never fully delete it. Like there'll be times where I'll just be like, I want to be off the grid. I do every once a year do one of those like tiny home getaways.
Yes.
Because I physically don't have any reception. It's like where they have those little converted shipping containers into a tiny home in like a really secluded area and you only get because I actually don't get any, it's SOS only. So I physically can't.
But why do you do that? Just to detox?
Just to detox.
Thank you so much to Gemma and Em for filling in on Australia's #1 news and pop culture show. I very much appreciate you being here with me.
We love being here, but as a listener, I cannot wait for my trio to be back.
Monday.
Next week, we are back together. This episode was produced by Emeline, Gazilas. The assistant producer is Tahli, Blackman. And there's been audio production from Scott Stronach. We'll talk to you on Monday. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.